Toxic best friend story time. My best friend's name was Jessica, and she was from Pennsylvania, and she was from a broken home. And when she met my mom, she absolutely loved my mom, and we became fast friends really quick. She always wanted to come over to my house, and when I didn't want her to come over for some reason because I wanted to be with my family, she would get really upset. She became really possessive over me with my family and other people at school, so I basically couldn't have any other friends except for her. And when she would see me hang out with people, she would start making up rumors and accuse me of having talked bad about other people. Jessica was also really promiscuous, but I never judged her for it. I supported her in whatever she wanted to do, like hang out with older boys, like much older boys. And one day she came to me and said that she was pregnant and that she was planning on having an abortion. 2 months later, she came out and said the same. Part 2 of Toxic Best Friend. TikTok deleted this, don't know why. So my best friend comes to my house having had 2 abortions in 1 month at this point, and she was upset. She was crying. She felt sick. She had nausea. I gave her medication like ibuprofen or something. I didn't know what to do. I was a 13-year-old child. And then she told me that she was in love with me and that she didn't know what she would do if I didn't love her the same way back. At this point, my hands were shaking, my knees were shaking. I didn't know how to help her. The thought of her being sick at my house and her family not knowing was making me feel horrible. The fact that I hadn't told my mom at that point made me feel horrible. So I went and I told my mom. She called her family right away, and they came to pick her up. They took her to the hospital right away. My mom and I were checking on her every single day during the time that she was in the hospital, calling, finding out how she was. The next week, okay, so people were judging me in the last video because I snitched, but I was 13, you guys. What would you do if you were 13 and your friend was sick in your house? Toxic best friend story time, part 3. So this week at school was horrible. I show up and there are so many things written on my locker. Nobody knew. The principal had it all cleaned up. The guys were boys were being really aggressive with me, writing me letters, threatening letters. One boy tried to push me up against the wall and tried to kiss me. I didn't let him, but that was that first time that had happened. And I had already been bullied a lot at this point, so I wasn't too surprised, but I was like, why would she be doing this after telling me that she loved me? Right. It also didn't help that the principal made it a point to come to my class and interrogate everyone about the locker situation. No one spoke, but it made me even more of a target. I was already so bullied at this point. I was dying. And I never really saw her after that. Her parents flew her back to Pennsylvania because this all happened in Nicaragua. All I know is that she's a stripper now, and she still tries to contact me on Instagram, and my brother's on social media. They don't pay attention to her, and I know that she's had trouble.
He exposed my photos to the whole school. So I was 14 years old around this time, mind you, and a freshman in high school. My parents were pretty strict about dating and never gave me advice about them or what to avoid. I never knew what manipulation was, gaslighting was, grooming, etc. So back to the story. I remember being in lunch, sitting with my group of gals, and a couple of guys came up to us. They just flirted with the other girls on my tables because they were interested with them. I just sat there because I didn't know anything about dating. So then this one guy came and sat next to me and said, "Feel weird, right?" I agreed, and we laughed. We actually talked and had a pretty great time. After that, we exchanged numbers and continued talking. Me and him grew pretty close over time. I would even say we were close friends. I'm pretty sure he flirted with me at times, but I didn't know. We exchanged secrets. We vented to each other. We were almost best friends. We basically told each other everything. Then one day out of nowhere, he asked, "Can you send some photos?" I asked him, "What photos?" And he said, "Blank photos." He said he'd send some too, because this is what friends do, to feel more connected. I didn't want to, and you will not believe what happened next. Come back for part 2. So we asked for blank photos, and he told me friends usually send each other these photos to feel more connected. He told me he would feel sad and not connected with me enough if I didn't send these photos. This was the first time that I had a genuine friend in a long time, and I didn't want to lose him, so I caved in. I took everything off and I sent the photos. He sent some back. I didn't really react. He asked me how I felt about it, and I just told him I didn't really have a reaction. And he said, oh. He said he liked my body a lot though. So the next day I ended up going to school and everybody was staring at me. I was wondering what the heck was going on. I talked to my friends and they told me I was disgusting. I asked them what I did wrong. It turns out that Michael had spread around the photos that I sent him without my consent. I was so upset and I didn't really know what to do. I talked to one of my trusted health teachers and they ended up telling me to report this to the principal. So that's what I did. He ended up getting arrested since he was 18. Yes, in this instance I got justice, but many people suffer and don't get justice. Don't send photos when pressured, moral of the story, because you'll really regret it. Follow for more story times, and follow my Instagram as well. She didn't want to have an abortion, so I made her. I was in the perfect relationship. I was dating this beautiful blonde girl with blue eyes, a perfect body, and gorgeous voice. Her name was Sabrina. She was basically everything a guy dreamed of. My bros respected me for it too. I was happy with the way the relationship was, honestly speaking. I was never fond of kids. They were so gross and dirty. So much bacteria and bodily fluids out of control. I wanted nothing to do with it, and they were so noisy. I didn't have the patience. So me and Sabrina had a usual breakfast every single morning. One day she said, "What do you think about having kids?" I felt disgusted by this idea. Why would she bring up such a thing? I told her I didn't have an opinion on it, and I've never thought about having kids. She nodded and continued eating her breakfast. I really hoped she wasn't thinking about having kids. So I wished her goodbye with a kiss on the forehead and went on my way to work. As I was packing boxes in my job, she texted me saying she had a surprise for me. She showed me a cute little gift bag. I was excited because I love gift giving. Me and her did it regularly out of nowhere. So I went home and she gave me the bag excited. I looked inside the bag and you will not believe what happened next. Come back for part 2. So when I got home, she hugged me and said, "Surprise!" and gave me the gift bag. I pulled out a baby onesie and looked confused. Then when I looked in the rest of the bag, it was a pregnancy test that was positive. She was jumping for joy and screaming in excitement. I was really annoyed by this, but instead I congratulated her and gave her a hug and a kiss, and I was excited. I really wasn't. I lied out of respect because I didn't want her to feel bad. I told her I was excited as well and we shared a kiss. I was okay with the idea at first. I didn't really mind. I didn't really feel anything about it. But then over time, I started to feel disgusted by the idea and highly annoyed. I wasn't really sure what to do. So I ended up venting to Reddit and they told me to leave her, which I didn't want to do. Then someone commented I could do a mixture that forces her to miscarry. I wasn't opposed to this idea. So then the person left their number, I got in contact with them and I met them in an alleyway. They ended up giving me one pill. They said only one pill because anything more than that could kill her. So I ended up making dinner for her and used the excuse that she was pregnant and wanted to do something nice. I mixed it in with her food and served it to her. She ate it and said it was good, but then she started to feel dizzy and her face became green and you will not believe what happened next. Come back for part 3.